Here we go.
All right, Chair, we can start our meeting.
All right, fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another socially distanced Santec meeting. A few housekeeping items as we get going. This meeting is being recorded. As you know, there are lots of people on the meeting, so please keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking, just to help keep the audio of the meeting as clear as possible. We would encourage everyone, keep your cameras off unless you're presenting or speaking. That said, even if you're speaking, it's not required to turn your camera on. During the meeting, if you want to ask a question or otherwise speak on an item, you have a couple of options. You can either turn your video on and kind of wave at us to get our attention, or you can use the hand raise function in Zoom. Myself, Ellison, production team will all be kind of keeping an eye on that. And hopefully one of us will spot you and call you out in the order that we see you. When it comes time to vote, we will be calling upon you to cast your vote. So, Ellison, did I miss anything under general housekeeping?
No, I think we are good, Chair.
Okay. With that, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to combine agenda items 1 and 2, introductions and approval of the minutes, kind of into one thing. To keep the meeting moving. So if you haven't done so already, please take a look at the meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion whenever anybody feels so inclined. But when it comes time to vote, we'll call on each agency, and if you could introduce yourself by name at that time, that'd be great. So you take a minute or two, and like I said, when someone feels ready to make a motion regarding the meeting minutes, I'd be happy to take it.
Good morning, Jim. This is Duncan, City of San Diego.
Good morning.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
I've got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Ryan Zellers from Del Mar.
Ryan, thank you. And let's go ahead and move to a vote.
All right, Chair, I will go based on, let me give one more check to the, we've had a few folks, few members on the attendee side, and I'm moving them over to the panelist side so that they can speak.
Working on the filter, so they might have to turn the unit on.
All right, so we'll go alphabetically based on confirmed attendance, and apologize if I miss somebody who might have snuck in, but alphabetically, let me just go down the list, and if I hear crickets, then I'll move on. City of Carlsbad, anyone on the phone?
John Kim, City of Carlsbad, yes.
Thank you. City of Chula Vista.
Oliver Bauer, City of Chula Vista, yes.
Thank you. City of Coronado, Chair.
Jim Newton, yes.
City of Del Mar.
Ryan Zellers, yes.
City of El Cajon.
Mario Sanchez, yes.
Anyone from City of Encinitas? Okay. City of Escondido.
Virpi Kulkaruotsalainen, yes.
City of Imperial Beach.
Jason Stack, yes.
Thank you. City of La Mesa.
Mike Kennard, yes.
Thank you. City of Lemon Grove.
Mike James, yes.
City of National City.
Yeah, Lucas Appiello, yes.
Thank you. City of Oceanside.
Yeah, this is Hamid Bahadouri. I abstained because I was not present in the last meeting. I cannot vote on the minutes. It's my first meeting at Santec, and I'm glad to be joining this wonderful group.
Thank you, Hamid, and welcome. City of Poway.
Melody Rocco, yes.
Okay. City of San Diego.
Duncan Hughes, yes.
Thank you. City of San Marcos. Okay. City of Santee.
Minji May, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Minji. City of Solana Beach.
Jim Greenstein, yes.
Thank you. Anyone from City of Vista joining us? Okay. County of San Diego.
Yeah, Zubir Wada, yes.
Thank you, Zubir. All right, Chair. We have recorded our votes.
Ellison, Ellison, this is Tila with City of Oceanside. I was at last month's meeting, if and I could vote for yes if that counts for this time. I'm not sure.
It does. Yes. Well,
Okay.
I'll approve for Oceanside and remove the abstain. But thank you, Ahmed. All right. So we have all yeses and no abstains and no objections, Chair.
Meeting minutes approved. Fantastic. We'll move on to public comments. Is there anybody out there from public comments? I see one hand raised. Hussam Hazanan?
Oh, Sam.
Yeah. Sam. I recognize that. Welcome, Sam.
Sam, let me promote you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. You're a panelist now, Sam. Sorry, I missed you. You snuck in there on me.
Oh, here we go.
Sam, did you want to add your minutes vote?
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, and thank you for joining us. Sorry again, I was
thank you very much.
focused on one monitor and not the other. All right, and did you have anything to say for public comment?
No, I just wanted to make sure you guys join me. Join me in.
Oh yes, of course.
Thank you.
All right, Tila, did you want to introduce Hamid formally?
Sure. Everybody, I would like to introduce you to Hamid Bahadouri, who is our new city traffic engineer for the City of Oceanside. He has many years of experience in traffic engineering and apparently knows a ton of people within Orange County and San Diego. And so I'll let you take it away, Hamid.
Thank you very much, Tila, and thank you, Alson. As Tila said, I've recently joined City of Oceanside as the city traffic engineer. I know many of you and have worked with SANDAC folks during my tenure on the Transnet ITOC, the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee, and other projects. And one person on this call who was instrumental in persuading me to move to San Diego County is Zubir. Thank you, Zubir. It was a good recommendation. Oceanside is a great place to work, and I'm looking forward to working with the rest of you.
Great, welcome.
And Mr. Chair, I just want to say it really is truly an honor for us here to have one of the, I don't know, probably one of the best traffic engineer, legal knowledge traffic engineer in probably the state of California. So Hamid, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Zubir. Very kind of you.
Fantastic. All right. So any public comments out there? I don't see any hands raised. Am I missing anybody? Going once, going twice.
No public comments on item number 3, Chair.
All right, so we'll move on to item number 4, the 2019 State of the Commute report by our own Ellison.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. You all should have in your attachments, 1 second here. There we go. You should all have in your attachments on this attachment number 1 to this agenda item, our 2019 State of the Commute report. What we wanted to do is in preparation for our next agenda item, which again is a roundtable that we had planned to do at our July meeting, was to kind of prep you for that agenda item by giving you a a baseline for where we were back in 2019. So This State of the Commute report is, requirement of our Transnet ordinance. It's an annual performance monitoring report just to refresh your memory and to bring those new to Santeg up to speed. Santeg collects data on our freeway and transit systems, and we produce this, ideally, this annual report. And based on some set performance measures that we've had in place for over a decade now. So this 2019 report was published in a 6-page InfoBits bulletin that we do here at Sandag. This was presented to our Independent Taxpayers Oversight Committee at our May meeting of ITALK, and was presented to them for their independent analysis and review. And now one of the things that we usually do after ITALK approval is to share it with you as our traffic engineering working group. So again, I don't want to spend too much time, but I want to definitely set the table for what we all know has been going on in 2020 by giving you the 2019 report. So again, 6 pages. This report has been streamlined over the years. For those who've been in the region for a while, this used to be a 20 to 30 to 40 page document that that I used to produce annually, and we've streamlined it down because it just we wanted to make sure that this was more focused on graphics and infographics, and giving the audience, such as our ITALK, the data that they need to make decisions. So page 1, we usually set the table, especially since we're about this is about our 7th, 8th year of economic recovery from the Great Recession, from how many years ago now. Well, so we usually set the table with socioeconomic data, and you can see our population, employment, and our economic productivity. We usually do a 10-year trend on that, as well as a 5-year. So figure 1, 2, and 3 show you how the region has been growing through 2019. And so we try to put that pattern together for you to see. So over 8% on population growth over that 10-year period, 21% on employment, and 48% on gross domestic product. So that's the socioeconomic data we typically set the table with on our State of the Commute. On the bottom of page 1 is our freeway performance. And here we're focused on peak period freeway travel in the region. And you can see based on the 10-year, how they've been changing year after year. Between 2018 and 2019, there was less than 1% decrease in VMT. It's been rather flat since about 2017. On the freeway. And again, remember, try to keep what we've been going through in 2020, set that aside momentarily, and let me set the baseline for how things were through December of 2019. And our peak period freeway delay, again, since economic recovery started around 2012, 2013, we had our economy, pretty resilient economy, was recovering pretty quickly, and you can see the delay was starting to go up pretty, was growing pretty high, through the 2014 through 2015, and then started to grow at a decreasing rate ever since 2016, and so we're calling it about a 5% increase in peak period freeway delay from 2018 to 2019. So, and most of that growth and delay, and that 5% has been mainly on I-15 and I-805 as the bottlenecks. In those traditional bottlenecks on 15 and 805, haven't gone away and are continuing to grow in their delay within those existing bottlenecks in the region, particularly on 15 and 805. So any questions on freeway delay and freeway travel? I'm looking for raised hands.
Okay, so I raise my hand, or should I just go ahead and talk?
Yeah, go ahead. Turn your camera on too, Zubir.
Okay, so all right, sure. You want to see my face?
Yeah, we sure do.
Thanks. I just wanted to know I saw the peak hour compare, the period is real all after 2008, the financial collapse. How does the 12 million today, or actually 2019, I think you had like 11.8 or 12 million vehicle hour compared to the one before the 2018? Say you take 2006 or something like that. Are we like we passed that, or we are still, probably recovering from that 2008?
From my memory, I do have that chart. I had to put that together for our chief economist. Unfortunately, I don't want to take the time to bring it up, but yeah, our delay is higher than what we were pre-recession, pre-Great Recession. So yeah, just in terms of absolute number, yeah, full recovery, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sure. I want to make sure I'm sharing my screen here again. All right, so any other questions on freeway delay? Looking for hands.
Hi, Alison. This is Minji.
All right, hi Minji.
A quick question about the GDP part. I saw like a 48% increase in the last 10 years. Was that adjusted for inflation, or is it just based on dollar amount?
This is what they call the nominal GDP. So there is a real GDP, which would account for inflation. We don't report that. You can go, we monitor it, but it's too hard to explain to people. But we certainly have that. I don't, off the top of my head, know what that curve looks like when you look at real GDP. But I can certainly share that with you offline if you're interested. But yeah, this is nominal GDP, not adjusted for inflation, correct?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Am I sharing my screen again? Okay. So we'll move on to page 2, which shows our freeway and transit time report for the region. I'll just zoom back out again so you can see the whole map here. So most of you have seen State of the Commute reported with travel times on our 12 established corridors that we have for performance monitoring. This is posted on our State of the Commute website, and obviously here in attachment 1 for you. I'm not going to go through every corridor. The general report is that for most of the corridors, with the exception of maybe I-15, most of them have had no change or a change of 1 to 2 minutes plus or minus. So for the most part, travel times are fairly stable on the freeway, again, with the exception of a few freeway corridors. One of the things that I don't remember if I represented the 2017-2018 report, the previous report, State of the Commute report, but we did incorporate transit travel times, which you're seeing here. So I'll just pick on one of them on the upper left here, which is the ironically it's the commute back up to Oceanside from downtown San Diego, which again is typically on I-5. It's this I don't even know what to call this color here, this faded army green, almost brownish tan. So you can see here the travel time in 2019 was 66 minutes on the coaster from downtown San Diego to Oceanside. That's no change from 2018. And on the freeway, it's a 5-minute decrease, so 61 minutes on the freeway on I-5. A lot of that has to do with the completion of the I-5 Genesee project and a lot of the freeway projects over in the merge, leading to that freeway reduction with all those construction delays not happening in 2019. So that's an example of where we've aligned the transit with the freeway travel where we can. So I again don't want to spend too much time on this. You have this in your attachment. Did anyone have any questions about page 2 in terms of the transit and freeway travel times? Again, pretty 2019 pretty stable in terms of not so much freeway delay, not so much freeway travel time increases. You know, the transit travel time is a different story. A lot of them have to do with, you know, operations of the transit, you know, in that given year. There's some trolley time increases due to some station construction going on in the East County on the Orange and Green Line and the like. So for the most part, it's been pretty stable in 2019. It was pretty stable in 2019.
Listen, sorry, I have a
Yes.
question. I don't see the raise hand function. I'm sorry, but I have a question.
Okay, yes, please. Sam?
This is Sam Hassan, the city, just on the measuring of the travel times on the freeways. I just noticed on the 78 eastbound, PM eastbound from Oceanside, looks like that's from Oceanside all the way to the 15, right? The entire length?
Yes, it's the entire length.
Yeah, just I wasn't sure what the measurement, you know, kind of, I think it's a trip that leaves at 5 p.m. Is that right?
So it starts in on the west side, we're at I-5, and that's the trip that starts at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So the departure travel time starts at 5 p.m. from there, and it's about a 17.5-mile corridor. And most of that congestion is obviously on the eastern third of the corridor, eastbound. Right. And so you can see the 26-minute travel time for that 16, 17-mile trip.
Yeah, and I was just going to say the number may be a little low, and I'm not sure if it's just, you know, if it was one kind of random day or more days that were averaged, but I can tell you that the travel time from Vista to the I-15 eastbound in the PM is generally higher than that 26 minutes, even starting from Vista, not even all the way from the west end. So I'm not sure how, you know, how representative, I guess, that number is.
Right. And again, this is not an, this is just a trip that starts at 5. It doesn't account for anything but 5 o'clock.
And
so
5 tends to be the peak, but yeah, it's
right. So this is something that we're gonna probably work on as we get you know, more access to other data sets where we can kind of tell a broader story. Again, this is a very one-dimensional measure based on, so just for our newcomers, all the travel times, these are just freeway travel times. It doesn't account for any ramps or connectors, just mainline freeway travel. And so in the morning, it starts at 8 o'clock. So once you're on the freeway, you know, what is that travel time when you start the clock at 8 o'clock in the morning? And for the PM, it's at 5 o'clock.
Hey, Allison.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if Sandag did some investigation when you show me the transit travel time versus the highway or the freeway travel time. At what point the two travel times are close enough that you start seeing higher demand for transit? At what point, I mean, you know, you saw the one to Escondido, I'm sorry, to Oceanside, and it's very close. And I know that line is very heavy, very well used by transit or the, you know, the rail that goes there. But other ones are very, very, the difference between the travel time on the freeway and the travel time on the transit is much bigger. At what point in time, based on, I guess, modeling, you would see more people running into the transit and getting out of their cars from the freeways?
So that's a good question, Zubir. And I think the way you, I'll counter with you know, it's hard to respond to because these are more system type travel times, right? The way the travel time works on the transit is it's really the departure time at the first station and the arrival time at the last station, right? And so, you know, what we aspire to move towards, this is an aspiration that's been over a decade now, is more of a travel of a performance measure that's more door to door, that gets at, you know, how to compare, you know, someone to, you know, ideally would be at home, right? Either getting in their car and either driving all the way or, whatever, or driving part of the way and taking transit for most of it and then either walking to their job. But, right now, these are locked in as system travel times, and they are hard to compare. But ideally, what we want to move towards is more of a door-to-door travel time where we're talking about arterial performance. We're talking about delays at ramps and connectors, where all of that gets incorporated in, because that's really the trip that you're making, right? And so for a transit, someone that wants to not use their car at all, this only the transit travel time here only tells part of their story, right? They somehow had to get to a coaster station or get to a rapid station. None of that's being, none of that experience is being captured at the beginning of their trip, the so-called first mile, and it's not being captured at the end of their trip, the last, the so-called last mile. So ultimately, that's I think where we want to go, is we're talking about more of a personalized experience being captured in these travel times. We're not there yet, but we're looking at different data, especially with the advent of big data that's is out there based on location-based data through cell phones and other types of ways of getting at bigger data sets that are
I think, Allison, I mean, I understand that, but I think in my mind, since this report is presented to the public, everything you said is correct, but it's like that's behind the scene work that Sandag does. And then it gets reflected to these trips, and you say, okay, when the minutes gets closer to less than 10 minutes, we start, seeing a shift from the highway to the transit with all those conditions that you said. We measured the trip from home to, but those are behind the scene. I just wondering if you start like developing a rule of thumb. Let's say it that way. We say that a lot, and and I know it's not that easy, but I'm just thinking in my mind.
If I were to look at that Oceanside to downtown trip, and I lived, 5 blocks from the Oceanside Transit Center, then I would be like, okay, yeah, it's getting competitive. Let me stop driving. Right. But most people don't live near the Oceanside Transit Center in Oceanside. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tila. They live probably east of I-5, and they somehow have to get to that transit center. And so how are they doing that? And if they're getting in a car, what's the likelihood that they're not just going to get on the freeway already? Instead of driving all the way to an unknown parking situation at Oceanside Transit Center, right? What if they drive to Oceanside Transit Center and there's no parking? Then they turn around and get back on the freeway anyway, right? That's the anecdote.
That whole last mile issue that we've been having.
Yeah. So that's but those are that's a real issue that we know is happening on the coaster corridor. Why demand on the coaster isn't what we thought it would be, is just people can't get to the station in a timely manner, in a quick and easy and efficient and convenient manner, right? Because all the people live east of I-5 that would be considered sort of the expansive market for coasters. They can easily get to the people west of I-5, but they can't get to the people east of I-5. And if anyone's on the phone that can back me up or refute me, this is open discussion here. So.
Well, here's just a random comment about the coaster. Is I feel like it's more, especially in the North County areas, it's not aimed for businesses. It seems like it's almost aimed for tourism. Like in Oceanside, we have a lot of, doing a lot of development in our downtown area, and it's based where the coaster is right there, and it's around the coaster, the station, the transit center. And so that people who take a plane can get right on the coaster, come right up, and then just walk to their hotel, and then walk around the downtown area. It's not necessarily more of meeting the needs of people, commuting to work or commuting to a grocery store or something like that.
Great. Any questions on travel times? Okay.
Not seen any.
I will get through the last 4 pages here, if you'll allow me. The last 4 are our transit performance measures. For those who've been around before, we've maintained a lot of these transit performance measures in this new streamline report. We have overall transit ridership has actually in 2019 has actually had an uptick, which is a good thing for the region in terms of ridership. Figure 6. I can't read the. We went from 329,000 boardings to 335,000. In terms of overall passenger travel, transit travel, which is kind of akin to VMT, but on the transit side, that figure 7 shows passenger miles, which again went up just a little bit from 1.72 million passenger miles, 1.73. Revenue miles is basically how much transit service is out there in terms of revenue miles, and that also has gone up a little bit with the increase in rapid service in the region. And when you do a quotient of figure 7 and figure 8, I believe you get the passengers per revenue mile, which is a industry standard, and that has also gone up from 3.37 to 3.42 in terms of passengers per revenue mile. Our 5 routes, rail routes, no surprise here in terms of 2019 passengers. We only have 5, so I don't want to call it a top 5 since we only have 5 routes. But Blue Line is the workhorse in the region, followed by Green Line and Orange Line. Our Sprinter came in at about 8,500 daily passengers, and our Coaster has finally come back up past 5,000 daily passengers in 2019. Our bus routes, our top 10 bus routes, our combined Super Loop Rapid 201, 202 in the university area has surpassed 10,000 daily passengers. It's our #1 route in the region. The 929 from downtown San Diego to Iris Trolley, almost in San Isidro, is #2. So you can kind of see the clustering there and the change between 2019 and 2020. For the most part, most of the routes have gained in ridership, with the exception of the Rapid 215, which is our rapid from San Diego to downtown San Diego to San Diego State. Lots of stories going on there with route changes going on in the mid-city area. But we're monitoring the ridership on the Rapid 215. Any questions on page 3? Okay, real quick, we'll go through the 6 performance measures for our Transnet funded transit. Again, an echo of our regional rail ridership. You've seen all of these. We're just showing them in a different manner and only showing 6 years worth on regional, just to show you where the growth has been going the last 6 years on rail transit and on bus. On our rapids, since our rapids are funded by our half-cent sales tax, again, you can see the growth in the Rapid 201, 202 Superloop. The one of note in 2019 is we have our new South Bay Rapid service from Otay Mesa port of entry to downtown San Diego through Chula Vista and on the 805. So we have our first reporting in on ridership. We'll continue to monitor that new route, and you can see the 235 through on the I-15 corridor has been fairly stable the last couple years. So continuing to watch the growth on the rapids in the region. In terms of bus productivity, again, this is productivity is measured in weekday passengers per hour. Again, that rapid, especially during the school year in the UTC areas, showing tremendous productivity. And again, a lot of the rapids here are all-day services on 235, 215, and the new 225. Continuing to monitor, the productivity of those routes as we move forward. So, And then load factor, which is percent of seats occupied. You know, right now, some of our more successful or have been in the 30s. Our Rapid 235, which is again the I-15 service, has been over 30% occupied. Again, these are stretched out during the whole day. These load factors are typically higher during the peak hours, but this is an all-day factor, so that kind of brings it down since we do have lower load factors, you know, on during the non-peak hours. Fare box recovery is something that we get from MTS in terms of how much is recovered from the fare box. And again, the success story on the Rapid has been you know, something that we've been documenting. These are really high fare box recoveries just for this route compared to you know, similar services nationally. So that's something that continues to be a success for the region. And the other Rapids are kind of coming more back in the reality of the way public transit's been working in terms of fare box recovery averages. So MTS has their standard you know, goal that they've been trying to set. I don't remember the number of what it is for these types of services. I can't remember off the top of my head. And on-time performance, you know, we've been in the, you know, over 80 on most of the routes, on the most of the Rapid routes. So that concludes the 2019 report. Again, it's 6 pages, and I invite you to give it a better look, but I wanted to at least set the table with regard to 2019 performance on the freeway system before we start talking about what you're all been experiencing in your local areas. But I wanted to set the table based on 2019 for this agenda item, and again, formally present this report to you as something that we usually do on an annual basis. So are there any questions on the 2019 State of the Commute report?
Allison, this is Jabir.
Yes. Hi.
Well, since I don't see anybody else, so I couldn't tell if somebody wanted to talk. So, but please stop me if somebody else wants to talk. But I have one comment. When I look at that transit line between UTC and UCSD, and it's so much higher. I think line 201 and 202.
Correct.
Because yeah, and it's almost more than double the ridership. Then I think figure 12, and then it was figure 8 or 9 or something like that. To me, it's like just you know, this is just a comment to Sandag that I know because I live in University City, but I live in the older area. But the northern area, it's a lot of students live there. There's a lot of condos. There is a lot of, you know, apartment. So that transit makes a lot of sense. So it leads us, or it leads Sandak to say the smart growth or the land use is so critical to transit. You can't stress it enough. You have to build that density to be able to have a transit that makes sense. And I mean, you can see that in Europe, and we all see it everywhere else, except here where we have this spread out and you have a hard time getting transit to work. So that's just a comment that stressing the land use and the high density is so important. And I know every city doesn't like it. They don't want the high density, but that's really a reality how it works.
Yeah.
The question I really have about the overall report is, when do you guys think you start reporting on the readiness for the CAV, which is the connected automated vehicle, in this report? When do you start looking at what we have as a region from ITS perspective and being ready for the CAV so you can start reporting? Do we start putting money more into this infrastructure of ITS so we can start getting ready, or what? You know, what's your thought about that concept?
Well, you know, this report, if you're talking about whether this report is ready for CAV, you know, I would say, you know, this report is based on, you know, the data that we have available today. And as this report starts to incorporate, you know, more data that's more trip-based and less system-based, right? You know, performance monitoring, the bread and butter of performance monitoring has been the the availability and the robustness of system data, right, from our operators, right? So Caltrans gives us freeway data that snap to their detection, and there's tons of transit data from our transit operators, and they've been reporting that for decades, in a very traditional manner, because that's what they're on the hook for with the federal, with FTA and other reporting that they have to do. Now, this report in order to get at what you're talking about, Zabir, our report needs to be based more on less on system data and more on personal trip data. And that's all this big data that you're hearing about. And that's something that I think we're sort of headed towards. I don't know, as we continue to figure out how we do data here at Sandag and how that would manifest itself in efforts like State of the Commute. That remains to be seen. But this report needs to incorporate more of that type of data to be ready for the advent of connected automated vehicles. So yeah, I mean,
Allison, here's what I'm thinking. Just food for thought, not only Sandag, but also the region. I mean, in my simple mind, we say, how is our striping well enough to be ready for automated vehicles? Because we know they use it, at least today. The technology maybe 20 years from now may not use it, but today it relies on the striping a lot. The vehicles that are automated today, they rely on striping. How is the region maintaining its striping well enough to be ready for the cab? And this is data that you say, okay, city, tell us, how often do you stripe? How well is it? Do you run retroreflectivity on your striping to see when you need to restripe it if you need to? And then you report that and you say, readiness for CAV. We stripe so often that by, like national standards, it's good for the, and the industry, whatever it is. I'm just, almost thinking out loud. But there are things that they are in the region that we need to do to be ready for the CAV. So that's my thought. And I'll keep quiet now.
Yeah, listen, this is Minji.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I have a quick comment. It may sound like a compliment. I noticed that our transit box, fare box recovery rate, I think the average about 30 to 40%. I usually think that's pretty low because, in my mind, in order to have that system to be sustainable, our goal should be someday be 100%, right? 100% or more to be. So, but last year I went to a seminar in the LA area. It was given by the LA Metro. LA has a extensive transit system, and their ridership is much higher than us. Their ridership is it's more than 10%. But I was shocked to find their fare box recovery rate was only 15%.
Yep.
15%. Oh my God, how's that sustainable? The more you put in, the more money you're losing.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, we're doing better, but I think we have a long way to go. I want to just emphasize my point. I want to keep in mind that fare box recovery rate, we had to shoot for the 100%, right, someday. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. That's my point. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's humbling to look at fare box recovery rates across the country, even, New York and Chicago, places where you think, transit is fairly healthy. I won't quote numbers because I don't want to get them wrong, but it's humbling to see how low they are still and how much, public subsidy goes into continuing to operate these, these systems. So point made, point taken. Any public comments on this item? If we're done with member comments, I'd like to move on if it's okay, Chair.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any.
I don't see any on the attendee side either.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, thank you, Ellison. We'll move on to the next agenda topic. Number 5, effects of COVID on local traffic patterns. This is intended to be an open discussion. There's no action required. To state the obvious, we're all living in this new abnormal normal state of social distancing and telecommuting and distance learning. Ellison is going to give us a little bit of information about what's been going on along regional transportation, the regional transportation network, to kind of set the stage. I don't think it'll come as any surprise to anybody that traffic volumes are down. But what we thought might be beneficial for this topic is a discussion about what each of your agencies have done to adjust to this new normal as it relates to traffic. Perhaps your agency's done something that others haven't thought of or would want to adopt. Have you learned any lessons along the way? Perhaps you tried something that didn't work. So, I mean, to help get you thinking, in my city of Coronado, we're not a huge jurisdiction, and the decrease in overall traffic has eliminated a lot of our more typical traffic-related issues. But we've done some of the more obvious actions to help out local businesses. You know, we've relaxed parking requirements for restaurants and other code restrictions to allow for increased outdoor dining. We've adopted or approved requests for curbside parking within typically metered public parking areas. We've pushed forward with some road construction projects, trying to take advantage of this time with decreased traffic volumes. But that has come with complaints from residents about noise and air quality impacts when everybody's stuck at home. So those are just a few examples of the types of things we'd love to hear from you guys. That's probably plenty of talking by me. Let me turn things over to Ellison for the regional perspective, give you guys a chance to think about things you've done and would like to bring up for the benefit of the group. So with that, let me turn it back over to Ellison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share my screen again. You have an attachment number 1. Let me share my screen again here. Okay, so the attachment number 1 for item number 5 is a 4th edition of a new Sandag info bit. As you may recall, in our June agenda, I attached, because we were supposed to do this agenda item in our July meeting, I attached the first 3, what we've been calling COVID traffic reports. And so this is the 4th edition of that series. And I hope you've had a chance to look at them. And if not, we can go through these. We'll go through this COVID report number 4, I'm calling it. But what we've done is we've been monitoring freeway travel, since we are data rich on the freeway side here, as you know from doing the State of the Commute report. Our folks in our research and program management department have put these great info bits together, kind of looking at stuff since about mid-March. So you want to think about the 4-week periods, you know, between mid-March till this report goes through, basically, you know, right before the July 4th holiday. So that's what we're calling our month 4. So you know, again, I want to spend less time on this and more for you guys to have your round table discussion, but I wanted to at least talk you through some of this in terms of the main thing to really talk about is we you know, the region, as you know, got hit pretty hard since the stay-at-home order went in place, you know, around the 3rd week of March, the governor's stay-at-home order. So it's no surprise that our VMT went down pretty significantly along the way. And you know, now that this is the month 4 report, you can kind of see, I'm showing you figure 1, how much that VMT went down and how it's been starting to taper back, right? It's you know, something more on the order of the high 20% on I-5. The reduction is only about 20% on I-15. I won't echo these numbers, but what we've done is we provided you, you know, end-to-end freeway VMT for 8 selected corridors in the region. So we kind of had to focus on, didn't want to show too many of these to make this chart legible. So we picked 4, and you can kind of see, you know, the initial dip in month 1, again, from mid-March to mid-April. tremendous. Something on the order of 50% during during the weekday period during the weekdays. So that's figure one in terms of VMT changes. We've also took a look at about 8 spots. There, 8 what I would call bottlenecks in the mornings, typically places in the freeway that we know we've got a lot of traffic and a lot of delay. So we picked 8 spots that are typically congested during the morning period, and again showing you how how the composite of those eight look from an ADT perspective. So these are daily traffic numbers, weekday traffic numbers. But the way this was done was to take all 8 of those and kind of combine them together into a composite. So you can kind of see in a weekly pattern, instead of the 4-week periods, all 16 weeks from mid-March to July 4th, how that's looked week by week. And so you can see in week 4, which takes, basically sometime around mid-April was where we kind of hit the lowest ADT in the region, or the highest decrease in ADT in these 8 hotspots. So just wanted to set the stage. Are there any questions regarding figure 1 and 2? I'm happy to take them now. Any questions? I mean, I don't think any of this is any surprise to anyone. So just want to set the table. But again, give you an update from those 3 previous reports that were given to you at the July meeting. This is report number 4.
Well, Allison, here's a question.
Oh.
Okay. Hello,
Minji,
Allison.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Minji.
Yeah. How did it explain the increase in VMT by like 20-some%? I was kind of surprised to see that.
Increase?
Was it?
These are all decreases.
Decrease. Oh, never mind. I thought somehow that was decrease. Never mind.
Add a negative sign to those, Minji.
Right. Mr. Chair, Allison.
Jamir?
Yes, thank you. You want us to discuss this afterward, right? Not really, because I want to discuss the COVID. I'm sorry, the impact of COVID on other element of the traffic engineering that we really want to. How they reacted.
Yeah. I'm trying to get through this quickly, Zubir. I'm really more interested in.
So I'll keep quiet until you get done. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to get done. And so, just real quick, the last element that we've been performing. Hold on, let me share my screen again one last time, and then I'll give you guys the floor here. Is looking at those same hotspots. What are the speeds doing, right? In terms of, typically at these spots, we've got, low, mile speeds in the 20s and 30s and 40s miles per hour on the freeway, and what's that recovery look like in terms of speed increases, right? And so you're seeing here those 8 hotspots, 78 Barham, I-5 Manchester. These are the peak directions, obviously. 805.5. So 805.15, for example, is one of our biggest bottlenecks in the region. You can see the speed recovery. So, those speeds were low. So you add, 50 miles per hour to what was already a low number. Basically what we're saying is that in the early parts of the stay-at-home order, these were back up to free flow speeds, right? So, you're adding 49 miles per hour to what was a low number. You're probably already back at 60, 65 miles an hour, back to free flow speed. So that's how you read this chart, all right, in terms of speed. You're adding speeds on top of what was a low speed. So that's how the team decided to look at these, to report these numbers. So these are speed increases on top of what is normally a really low speed pre-COVID. So just wanted to show you these 3. Again, you have the 3 reports from July, and this is the 4th report. And if anyone has any questions about this particular report, but I'm more interested in hearing what you guys have to say. But I wanted to set the table with regard to acknowledging, that we're on top of it on the freeway system. This will be good material for our 2020 State of the Commute report. But Chair, at this point in the interest of time, I'm going to give you back the floor and let you continue the roundtable discussion.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Ellison. So freeways are moving nicely. Let's chat about what's going on our local roads. Questions, concerns, or things that you have done. Zubir, let's kick it off with you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And and I truly want everybody to participate in this thought, especially Hamid, our newcomers, because I want to talk about every one of us is a traffic engineer and registered traffic engineer and sign off on the engineering and traffic surveys. So the question I want to hear from our group is that, are you postponing traffic surveys because of the low, or because not the low, but because of the low volume, but the higher speed is more, because it may give you an 85th percentile that is higher than you have? Or are you saying no? Really, the 85th percentile speed should be of the free flow speed. So this is like the best. This is heaven. It gives me truly the free flow. So I want to bring this issue to the table, and I want to see, because I think it impacts us directly. It really does. You know, maybe Sandag looks at more the region, but every one of us deal with the ENT survey.
That's a great question. Has anyone tackled that one yet?
Yeah. This is Sam Hassan in City Vista. So speeding has been a huge issue actually in the last few months. We're bombarded with complaints all over. You know, it's whether it's major roads, local roads, collector streets. So that's our biggest issue that we're dealing with right now. And then we are putting on hold a couple of engineering and traffic surveys that you know, came due because the speeds are high. And I don't think it's, you know, this condition is representative, because hopefully, of course, it's a temporary thing that, you know, will come out of. So we're actually putting a couple of speed surveys on hold right now.
Out of curiosity, how close are you to those surveys expiring, and does it affect your ability to enforce the speed limit in the near term?
Yeah, they have expired, actually, a couple of those. And we did one of them that came out much higher, so we decided not to do. And luckily, we don't have that many due in this period, but you know, we'll see as more of them come due.
Jim, this is Raj. Just wanted to talk about a little bit on Caltrans sites as well. We are, just like what Sam mentioned, even for us, our RAM meters are not a lot of them are on, they're off. And we do analysis at RAMs and at our traffic signal locations, so we are postponing it. The speed is not representative of what truly the real scenarios are. So yeah, we are also in the same boat.
Interesting. Okay. Anybody else on that topic?
I do want to add, this is Tila with the City of Oceanside. One thing is our signal timing, because there's less traffic and we have a lot of signals in coordination, and there's signals around schools that we have on specific signal timing set up there. And so it's causing some issues where people are maybe having to wait on a side street a lot longer with no traffic going on the arterial streets. And we're getting, you know, a few of those calls recently. And I haven't jumped out there to go change any of the signal timing, because I'm sort of, you know, we see the traffic picking up, and, you know, as numbers go down, you know, more businesses and stuff will be open, but definitely it's going to be something we need to address in the long run, because even with the numbers possibly going down and staying down with COVID, I kind of foresee a lot of people who are working from home might adjust their schedule to do that more often. And maybe not 100% like they are right now, but maybe a day or two staying home. And I think that might happen across the county possibly. And so it's something to kind of pay attention to and figure out how to address all the signal timing in the cities.
So Tila, this is Mr. Chair. Tila, so you could just take the signal timing out of coordination and let it free run for the time being. Because if you think the traffic volumes is gonna probably decrease and may decrease in a different way, and collect the data at a later date. But today, it would be coordinated and set your main street with a green time that is a lot more than what you need. So you probably have a side street that are just sitting there and waiting. And just take it out.
And that's true, and we've discussed that as well. And also we were so short on staff as
Sure,
well.
sure.
So there's that factor on our end. But no, we discussed that, and I discussed that with our maintenance crew as well. And there's some locations where we did take the signal out of coordination as sooner than it originally was. So there was 2 locations we did that. But all in all, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, and Jabir and Attila, on Caltrans side, we have seen the same thing. We do have a lot of coordinated signals that actually saw these CSRs, increased. I would say about a couple of months ago, 2 to 3 months ago, when we had traffic kind of. If you look at what Allison had shown, we had seen a continuous rise toward 18%, and you can see that people could have to wait a lot on the minor streets for these coordinated signals. So we have gone and actually took those signals out of coordination. And we are watching just like everyone else and see what the new pattern will be. What will be that stage? Is it going to be close to what 2019 traffic was at the same time, or it will be below by 10% or 5% even, and how to adjust and move forward with it?
So I'll be back to my question. I think, and I really want Hamid, if he's still around, because
Hamid's not on the phone. He had to
not.
go to another meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's too bad. But because the law says the free flow speed, it has nothing to do with the real condition, as Sam said. It's really, the real condition is more of a politic issue. It's not, I don't think it's a legal or technical issue, because the free flow speed, I remember in TRB, the groups, not arguing, but trying to really say in life, what is a free flow speed? It really is a speed that you should not be impacted or friction by anything on the roadway. You drive the geometrics of the roadway. If the roadway is designed for 80 miles per hour, you should be able to drive 80 miles per hour comfortably without any driver around you putting friction on you to reduce your speed. That's the free flow speed.
I think I will have to disagree with that. I mean, that is the ideal conditions. If you read the highway capacity manual, free flow speed is ideal conditions that should not exist in real life, except in the COVID-19 era, which, again, this is very temporary, that I don't think is representative of real life. So I would not consider that.
But Sam, this is in the law. This is in the California Vehicle Code. In the California Vehicle Code, I'm sorry, it's in the California Vehicle Code, but I know it is in the California MUTCD that says the 85th of the free flow speed.
If you cannot create free flow speed in real life, then that's just what it is. We do it outside of the peak hours. That is a given. So you don't do it in your, rush commute hour. Obviously, you do it midday or mid-morning. So in normal times where we had, full traffic volumes, but to say that this is a condition, this condition now is representative of reality, that I don't think.
Right, no, Sam, I never said the reality. All I am talking about the technical side of it.
Traffic levels, are back to normal. Then your free flow speed, you pick the freest time of the day, which is, it could still be congested. That's just the nature of your street, right? Yeah. And then, but it could be where, you get to some streets, like in your mid-morning kind of a time of day where traffic is pretty free, but that's the freest you can get, and that's all you can do.
I think the court has accepted the fact that we need to do it outside the peak hour during the day.
Correct.
Because that's reasonable.
Yeah.
The court didn't argue about the definition of the free flow speed. I am more interested in that now we as a traffic engineer and licensed as a traffic engineer by the state, we hold the higher level. That's what all I am saying is that, to me, this is an opportunity for us to truly know the free flow speed.
Yeah,
That's all
I
I'm saying.
mean, I don't know what, kind of value that has, right? I mean, again, it's an ideal speed that you could design your road for, but these are already existing roads that have been designed. And, I'm not sure, if there's much use for it, but yeah, I mean, it could be measured, right?
I'm seeing a couple
Okay,
hands
this is,
raised.
yeah.
Folks might want to
This
be
is Abe.
jumping in on this. First one I saw was Abe.
Yes, this is Abe Encinitas. A few things. First, I agree with Sam. The free flow of speed, I think it's about a terminology. The free flow of speed in HCM is a different free flow of speed to what Zubir is referring to. The one for establishing speed limit is definitely not the free flow of speed. It's not the 85th of free flow of speed. METCD and CVC basically just say you don't need to get to a density of 0 or an absolute free flow. Your drivers, the ones you're shooting for your survey, you should not be impacted by adjacent vehicles. That's about it. Or if you have a platoon of a bunch of cars that the first car is basically dominating the speed, you shall not shoot, the ones behind it. But the first one, you can easily shoot it and it's not in free flow condition. So it basically says the cars should be driving in their regular, you can be in a level of service C or even D, as long as a delay is not imposed on the vehicles you're shooting, your survey is valid. So it's not free flow. You're not shooting for 85th of free flow. You're shooting for 85th of basically uninterrupted condition. But in college, I remember we were told that if you want to shoot for free flow, you gotta go there at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and try to find out what the free flow is. But to Sam's point, like, what is the use of that anyway? But with regards to the speed surveys, we interestingly had our surveys were varied, but we had some strapping modifications and some traffic calming projects. We wanted to redo the survey, and we did notice that our speeds are I think at one of them, it was like even 2 miles below our previous survey. Now, if it was the effect of the project, it wasn't like a serious traffic calming project. It was just a lane narrowing. We went down to 10.5. But the survey came back pretty good and the speeds were lowest. Although I'm pretty sure everybody agrees that the volumes on our roads are lower, my feeling, at least on my own driving, I can guarantee, the fact that our travel times are very reliable compared to before COVID situations, people are not in rush. People can trust their travel times. Many times the cars you see on the street, they don't have like before. They're not trying to get to work or trying to get an appointment that they're late for. So the volumes are lower, but people don't have those super important stuff that they're late for anymore. I guess that's one reason that although the volumes are low, the speeds has not gone that far up. Something else that I wanted to bring up, not related to the speeds, is I wanted to ask about how many other cities have done, because we received this from our city manager's office that apparently they heard from other city managers, and we did this putting PEDs on recall 24/7 for people not touching the push buttons. For this whole COVID situation. We just did it in downtown, but we received a lot of complaints, obviously during the less busy times of day when there is no pedestrian there, especially on wider roads. Cars get pissed when they see, 30 seconds on the timer when there's no pedestrian there just because it's on PED recall. Can I ask how many cities have done such a thing? PED recall 24/7, some days, some areas of town?
The city of Oceanside, we only have a few that have always been on recall in the downtown area due to the pedestrian activity, and it's during certain times of day. Other than that, we did not go out and change anything once COVID started, mainly because we were concerned with that specific issue of, the signals, there being a PED recall with no PEDs. So I just go around and kick all the PED push buttons with my foot.
So Tila, the PED recall that you made have a push button on downtown, or they are like a San Diego downtown, don't have a push button?
No, it is a push button, but it's just a couple of intersections downtown where it's just automatic PED recall. And PEDs sometimes do push a button, but other than that.
Right.
I don't know.
I know-
It's
I
just,
know-
it's only for the during the day.
Right. Oh, okay, yeah. I think Carlsbad has that.
Anybody else made that adjustment to their pet indications?
This is John Kim from Carlsbad. As Zubair mentioned, yes, Carlsbad, at the onset of the COVID situation, were requested by our city manager to look at some things that we could do, including concerns from pedestrians about touching the push button. I think we were told that some agencies had done something with touchless traffic signals, and our signal guy said, well, we could easily implement it with a pedestrian recall. So we did it only at certain locations, obviously, because of the way the recall works. We didn't, like Tila said, we didn't want to have a pedestrian phase when there were no pedestrians. So we did a analysis on like 10 intersections and use an arbitrary threshold to implement touchless at about, I think it's about 8 locations, all near the beach, all what we considered significant pedestrian activity locations.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm
I'm keeping an eye on the time here. We're going to have to move on pretty quickly here. Were there any other questions? Maureen, I'm sorry, you had your hand up for a little bit.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't really have anything on the operational side of things, like the signal timing or the speed surveys. That Duncan might have something on that, but I just wanted to comment on the planning studies that we have delayed, and this may be obvious, any data collection. We have a lot of ongoing planning studies, plan updates, parking requirement studies ongoing, but we're not collecting data under these types of conditions. We're looking at historical data, doing some surveys, and looking at historical speed data as opposed to collecting data. Again, maybe the obvious, but just wanted to respond to Zubair's question.
Gotcha, thank you.
Hey, Jim, I have a quick just a response to touchless. We in Caltrans are looking at 2 companies. We are testing in the Trans Lab right now, 2 touchless push buttons, and to make sure that they default, if there is an error, there is an issue, they default back to a mechanical button. So this is something might come from standards point of view later on. We might have an option to add touchless in future. Just wanted to give update on that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I know you're keeping the time, but I'm truly sorry. Maureen, I wanted to ask Maureen. Maureen, did you consider the collecting data and adjusting the data based, for example, on what San Diego or your historical data? Say it's 20% less, then you just adjust it for that, but still collect the data and do your traffic impact studies?
Maureen,
she has that. Maureen, you have the mic. Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. We had a discussion with our consultants about the best approach, and we just decided that we would wait, and we have enough historical data to reevaluate existing conditions. And a lot of our studies in the planning department are long range. And so exactly what existing isn't as important as what it's going to be in 2050. And so data this year versus last year is less critical, to be exact.
Yeah. See, we deal sometimes with a very small project that needs to get done yesterday. So you become a little bit, delaying it. But anyway, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Sure. One last question for the group, if I could. Has anyone done any like downtown road closures to try and support retail and downtown business? Anything like that?
Yes, this is Abe Encinitas. With the Sandak Shared Street project, we implemented 2 different scenarios. In downtown, we have 2 lanes in each direction, permissive lefts, no left turn pockets. We prohibited all the left turns at our signals and dropped a lane from each direction to keep all of our diagonal parking spaces that we had. and just shifted all of our diagonal parking spaces 10, 11 feet from the curb. So basically they would now back out into the remaining travel lane, and the space that we opened up, the 10 feet, we provided to our businesses. We added water-filled barricades, and it was used for around a week, but the anticipated delay, although we did clarify the situation beforehand to our council and our residents, but they thought the parking space was way more valuable. So they said, drop the lane, we need the parking. However, after a week of implementing the measure, they noticed that the impact of parking maneuvers getting in and out from those single remaining lanes was pretty bad. And the delay was so excessive, they decided to reconsider, and they said, hey, we don't like this situation. Yeah, we have our parking, but people don't come to downtown anymore because of the whole delay. So the second scenario that after 4 or 5 days we implemented was we left the travel lanes as is. We brought back the permissive lifts at our signals in downtown. The only thing is each business provides us insurance and applies for a permit and takes control of the few parking spaces, the diagonal ones that they have in front of them. So the diagonal parking spaces that we have in downtown, they're around 17 feet, 16, 17 feet. So our public works brings out water-filled barricades and basically blocks 2, 3, 4 spaces depending on the frontage of the business. They pull a permit, they provide the insurance and everything, and then they set their tables or whatever into those virtual parklets per se. That's how we're doing it. And we have around like 10, 15 businesses already that are doing it.
Interesting. Okay.
Mr. Chair, we also, based on the same program that the city of Encinitas, that Abraham mentioned from Sandag, we got some money, but we did it a much simpler way. We just basically went to 2 block on Main, should be Main Street, but it's really Main Avenue in Fallbrook, and we closed it. But the closure was more for the rest. So the restaurant, their table were all over the right of way, all over the street, because the traffic, we did not want to commingle the vehicular traffic with the pedestrian traffic. So we closed completely the blocks, you know, and the signals at that block became all red, flashing red. So, and the road is closed on one side to them, so the driver, when they come to it. And but we did it only on Friday afternoons and Saturday afternoons. Now the community wants to do it the whole weekend. You know, county doesn't have probably the traffic volume that a lot of cities do. I mean, you know, this roadway you're talking about, you know, I think the ADT is like 8,000, 10,000 cars a day. So it's not a lot. So during these hours, it doesn't, you know, so it's tolerable. It's, you know, the traffic volume can handle it. And that's what we did. And so, and you know, the community was very happy with it. And like I said, we're probably going to expand it to be closed for the whole weekend. And it's as simple as it could be as a road closed.
Gotcha. All right.
Well, on the same note, just on record, I wanted to express this for Sandak folks who are here. Guys, when it comes to giving money to the cities, you guys are really cheap. Like $8,000 really for a grant? Like the cities who didn't apply for this, don't worry, it was just $8,000, and our staff time for it was probably 18 already. So,
do you want me to pass that along, Abe?
Yeah, I was like, our mayor comes to me and says, "Hey, if Sandak has this great opportunity to provide more room for our businesses," I was like, "Okay, let me take a look," and I find out the money is like $700-800. I'm like, really?
Yeah. I mean, you know, we only had a fixed pot, and so we had to kind of figure out how we were going to, how big the pies were going to be, right?
Yeah, and that's what we got us too. That was $8,000. So, you know, that's why we wanted to simplify it as possible, so we don't spend a lot of time.
And there were a lot of restrictions, correct, on what you could spend the money on.
Right.
Yeah.
The deadline was like 10 days after or something.
Yeah. Sorry about that. It was more of a, you know, I don't know if we were going to lose it if we didn't give it to you guys, or I can't remember the constraints that we had on it, but I'm glad we were able to help out a little bit.
No, Allison, that was good, because I think Sandag needs to offer only the carrot and let the work come from the city if they really want it or they means too much to them. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. So that's a fare box recovery thing, right? We gave you a little bit. You guys put in more skin in the game, right? Mr. Chair, I think we need to move on in the interest of time.
Yeah, and what we'll do, maybe we'll keep this on the agenda for the next couple meetings, just so if more issues or ideas come up, we'll have an opportunity to chat about them in the future.
Absolutely.
But for now, let's move on. Let's go ahead and go to item number 6, Caltrans updates.
Yes, good morning. It's Rob Owen at Caltrans local assistance here in District 11. And I'm going to start with a couple of recent announcements, I think, that have come up since the written document went out. So hopefully some of you have received this already about some new online training that's going to be offered next week through the federal aid series. You know, they've broken up a week-long training into, you know, kind of a little more manageable segments, and now they're finally able to start delivering that online. So if you aren't getting our blog or emails with this information, you can go ahead and you probably can't, if you can see the screen, I don't know that you can actually click on the links when I'm sharing a screen like this, but I can forward this to you if you don't have this information from another source. But I just wanted to bring that up since that's going to come up just next week. So let's see. The other item I wanted to mention, and this one I will try to email out. Again, it's from our blog, and dates. If you can see that on the screen, I hope it's talking about the survey on traffic control devices. So I think that's definitely something that this committee has talked about quite a bit. And hopefully, maybe this won't be the first time you're hearing about it, but there is the survey that's online again. You know, the link is here, but it's going to be in our localassistanceblog.com. You'll be able to find this announcement with the link and be able to take that survey. Let's see, it has a deadline here of September 2nd. So that's kind of the new information. I'll just leave that up there for a minute. And really most of the other items I wanted to point out from the written report, probably for a variety of reasons, the inactive projects are slipping a little bit. So I just wanted to, we just got an update last Friday with a few more agencies. I think La Mesa got caught up, but Chula Vista, Escondido, Oceanside, Santee, and Sandag now have inactive invoices in addition to the agencies I mentioned in the report. So I know everyone's been doing really well trying to do it all electronically and doing electronic signatures. So hopefully that's made the process a little bit easier and being able to get things on time. But again, that's something that FOHWA is still really staying on top of and being pretty persistent about asking for justifications for especially larger projects that are getting overdue to keep under the threshold. Hopefully also by now, if anybody's applying for active transportation program, cycle 5, you have your applications well underway. I mean, they extended the deadline a little bit to September 15th, which I think I mentioned last month. But if there is any project involving Caltrans right-of-way, though, we really need to know that now so that there can be an appropriate advance review. And that's something you can discuss with your assigned area engineer. The other big grant program that was popular is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Again, that deadline has also been extended to October 19th. So you got a little more time on that. However, again, it's still anticipated to be very competitive, and there's a lot of requirements to meet there. And just going on, if you have the list of updates there in front of you, the next update talks about the request for authorization. So basically, Caltrans headquarters and FHWA are pretty much cutting off any more authorization requests for this fiscal year. So if you haven't requested funds authorization by now, it probably won't happen now until October is when they'll start looking at those for the next federal fiscal year. But if there's something that's really urgent, make sure you get in contact with your area engineer to make sure that we can try to get it in under the deadline here. I think those are really the main highlights I wanted to point out. You know, if there's any CTC extensions, I had highlighted there in the notes. You know, they extended the deadline from the June meeting to December. So the allocation or extension requests that would have normally been due in June that need to be considered at the December meeting, we'll need to receive and review those at this time. There's usually not too many, usually primarily affects active transportation projects for timely use of funds. And I don't think there was too much more. You know, in the announcements that went out, I attached a new office bulletin that came out about the let's see, contract administration guidance. I attached the full bulletin there for reference, so that if you did have any concerns, you can refer to that. And again, I would still, you know, in addition to those couple classes I mentioned, you know, keep checking online for some of the new training that's coming out, because again, they're trying to do more and develop more modules that can be delivered online, either as recordings or live in person. And I think that was the main highlights there. Oh, the other attachment I had included in the updates is for those of you that are working on active transportation projects, again, another heavily oversubscribed program, but Caltrans headquarters put together a pretty comprehensive list of different types of funding that can be pursued for active transportation projects, just to, you know, give as many options as possible if the, you know, traditional active transportation funds are not available. So I think that's the last few pages of the updates include that list. So unless there's any questions, those are the highlights for this month.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rob. Any questions on that?
Chair, any public comments on this agenda item? I'm not seeing any hands raised from the attendees list. Chair, we need to go back to the previous item on our roundtable and see if there's any public comment on the previous item on the COVID discussion.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot to do that. Are any public comments on the COVID item?
Okay, I see no raised hands on the previous item, so no public comments, Chair, and no public comment on the Caltrans report.
Okay. All righty. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. So we'll move on to item number 7, CTAC meeting briefing, but I believe the August meeting was canceled. Do I have that right? So there's no update here?
No update, Chair.
Fantastic. Okay. Can I move on? Do we have to take public comment on no update?
No.
Okay, great. Moving on, item number 8, matters from members. Anybody got anything to talk about? I've got a hand up, Abe.
Yeah,
go ahead.
This is Abe Encinitas. I brought this up, I guess 2 weeks ago. Ellison, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if this was passed to members, the matter about the traffic control plan. Do we want to talk about it here?
Why don't you introduce it briefly, and then
Okay.
we'll put it on the agenda for September.
We can, okay. So guys, you've been in the area for way longer than I am. I've been in the county for like 7 years now only. The question that came up a lot in different cities that I've been at is how different jurisdictions treat traffic control plans submitted to the city for the projects that are from developers, from utility companies, or even projects that are city-owned. Like if we are doing a CIP ourselves, how do we treat our traffic control plans with regards to them being designed from scratch, or use or just tweaks, or just copy paste of the county, the county standard, regional standard traffic control plan package, and on which ones you ask for a sign and a stamp, on which ones you just accept a copy. We had this situation multiple times with our risk management that they want us to have like a clear policy. The city at the moment, Encinitas, doesn't have such a thing, and we just play by the ear, I guess. But the majority of those, the ones come from developers, coming from the utility companies. We are basically, our traffic team is responsible for reviewing them and blessing them. So that okay, or that signature that our engineer puts on those plans before passing them to the permit counter and allowing them to pull a permit, basically, I guess, puts us at liability because we're the one okaying it or approving it. I wanted to know how other cities are doing it. We have had a lot of different scenarios, maybe create a list of streets. Okay, on these streets, we want signed and stamped, on these other ones, we don't. Going with our circulation element map, classified roads need signed and stamped plans, unclassified don't, going with the speed limit. Our concern obviously is many people who come want to pull a permit, they're just, a single mom and pop shop or somebody just modifying a driveway on a relatively major road or a classified road. They don't even know, if we ask them that we need a signed and stamped traffic control plan, where they should go to. And this would backfire, would go to council. So I wanted to know how other cities, if you have a council approved policy, or if you have an established program for asking for traffic control, signed and stamped traffic control plans. That's the story.
Mr. Chair, if I know Allison wants to close this meeting, but Abe, just for your information, when the regional standard committee developed the appendices A of the temporary traffic control, it really was meant for the utility companies. The utility companies was pulling a lot of permit, they do a lot of the maintenance, so they wanted something quick that they can submit where the agency will be okay. That's really the man to it. And I know probably Tila can talk about it, but it has been expanded to a lot bigger than that. And like our agency is a huge agency, they just want to use the TCs, TC, and just get it in the permit and move on. But it really is your call as the city traffic engineer or the county traffic engineer to make of it. We don't have a policy. I think this is more of a technical issue, as long as you understand your legal side of it, so that's, so it's up to you to, I know the city of San Diego, my understanding is they do require to a certain project. I think it's the ADT on the roadway, that if it's above the 5,000, at least when I was working in the private sector, was the threshold. If it's above 5,000, then you do need the traffic engineer to prepare temporary traffic controls. So that's, so that's one way of looking at it. But I think the city still, or the county still liable. It just, you have the insurance and the liability that comes with the contractor. But if you have fatalities, that insurance may not be enough. They will just give you that 1 million or 2 million and walk away, and you end up with the 18 or 100 million, whatever it is. So you still want to make sure that whatever you put there is safe for the motorist. And that's all I got. Thanks.
If I may share.
Yes, please.
Minji,
Sir, go ahead, Sam.
Go ahead, Sam.
I think Minji was going to go. Go ahead, Minji.
All right, thank you. I just want to say we don't look at it by classification per se. We look at the specific case, because it could be a residential street. If it's like a closure of a sidewalk and stuff like that, doesn't affect traffic flow. We use the just a standard plan. You can copy and paste. But if it could be, say, a full street closure, we require detours, stuff like that. So we're really looking at it on a case-by-case basis. So if, like I said, if you have a lane closure, particularly on major streets, of course, we do require traffic control plans and specific for the project. That's it.
Sam?
If I may share the City of Vista unwritten policy is we allow 3 options really. Is the first one is, which is our most preferred, is a traffic control company that is licensed by the state. There's a certain license number that I don't know off the top of my head. So there's, there's just normal traffic control companies that do the traffic control plans. They tend to be cheap, efficient, quick, and they really kind of know the business because they are also in the business of implementing traffic control plans in the field, so they kind of know what to do. And then we also allow ones to be prepared by engineers, and honestly those are my least preferred personally, just because they tend to be overcomplicated and not really, just because there's not, I think, the hands-on experience in the field. And then the third option is if it's on a case-by-case basis, we allow a typical that could just be pulled out of the regional standards or the California METCD. Even for lane closure, sometimes on a major road, we'll allow it because it works just fine. And so we try to simplify it really, as long as it's applicable to the situation out there. And then the approval, it's either myself or one of my assistant engineers that is not licensed too. So that's the licensing thing is not a big thing for us. But then the insurance is big. So the traffic control plan has to come in with a permit, and the permit has requirements. We call it an encroachment permit that has, that needs a certain, business license, insurance, and so on. So that's where we kind of cover ourselves with that.
Yeah.
This is Tila.
Sorry, Tila. For what it's worth, Abe, Coronado is very similar to what Sam described. We'll allow regional standards. If those aren't really applicable on a case-by-case, we want to see a design come up, but similar to him, our permit has insurance requirements to cover. So Tila, go ahead.
It's very similar, I think, to what everybody's saying. A couple things I want to add to it is, one, we have the indemnification language on our right-of-way permit, along with, requiring the insurance from the contractors who's going to be working within our right-of-way. We do utilize the San Diego regional standards only if it matches, the same, what's on the standards. It meets what's out in the field. But if there's any variations, then we'll want, another plan presented. If it's in an arterial street, and if it's some Joe Schmo going to be writing it, drawing up a plan, then we want it stamped. If it's a traffic control company that's going to be submitting the plan, then that is sufficient for us. Also, the other thing I really just want to add was we actually have MOUs with the utility companies such as SDGE, AT&T, and Cox. And that kind of covers us a little bit with the traffic control plans in terms of when they need to submit a traffic control and their fees and more indemnification language and stuff like that. I don't know if other cities have that with the utility companies, but it definitely seems to help us a little bit in the mainstreaming with those types of traffic control and right-of-way permit requests. So I could go into more, but I'll just stop there.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Abe. Does that give you what you were looking for?
I guess we're all in the same boat. My only concern, what I got from risk, is our risk management believes that the fact that we are approving, even if it's coming from a regional standard package, or if it's just some sort of a drawing that we're approving, the liability falls on the city. I mean, it might go at some point to insurance, but the insurance company would say, hey, these guys didn't do anything wrong. They implemented the traffic control plan that you guys approved for them. And they did exactly that. Why are we liable? The traffic control plan was wrong. So that's the concern that our risk management has, that because we are basically blessing the traffic control plan, no matter where it's coming from, since it's not signed and stamped, we are liable. And they're using some other big cities example that even for a dumpster put in front of somebody's house, they're asking for a signed and stamped plan. I believe city of San Diego is like that.
Interesting. Okay.
So I don't know, to Ellison's point, if we want to have some sort of a countywide policy, or we're happy with how we're doing things and we don't need any kind of a, I don't know, established, agreed upon, or we want to talk to our attorneys. Has anybody, just a quickie, has anybody ever had an example with any kind of a litigation for traffic control?
Well, I mean, Abe, I don't know if we really need to establish a countywide policy. I think this is a local issue. Because if the contractor has submitted, say, Exhibit H from or Exhibit 6 from the MUTC, and he says, I'm going to do the work that way, and you say, okay, that sounds reasonable. You know what to do, and there was an accident, then they can't get out of it, and the city shouldn't be liable because they approved something per the manuals. That's what protects you. That's what gives you the design immunity. Otherwise, you don't know. You say, I don't know how to run his business. He wanted to close the shoulder only. I give him a traffic control. I approve the traffic control that he submitted to close the shoulder. Hence, he should be, if he deviates from that, he really should be the one liable for it. I don't know. I'm not going to tell him how to do his job. I just tell him how it impacts based on his proposed traffic control. At least that's the way I look at it at the county. So therefore, it's important to approve what they give you as long as it complies with the manuals and the guidelines of the regional standards or our standard engineering guidelines. And you say, yes, you can do it that way. If there is a road closure, you do whatever you need to do. There is a politics to it, but whatever. But it's pretty simple issue. So you just have to scratch your head and see what the city wants. That's all I got.
Chair, we need to wrap up.
Yeah, let's, so we'll follow up, Abe, if there's a need to make it a future agenda item as well. And I'm seeing some comments in the chat area, so everybody check those out too. That might be
Duncan, Duncan gave us all the links so people click on his PDF if you're interested in how the city permit, how the development services handles that. So thank you.
So moving on to upcoming agenda items. Anybody got any topics for a next meeting? I'm not seeing much, but if you do come up with items, feel free to email those over to myself or to Ellison, and we'll make sure we get those scheduled. Next meeting, Ellison, right? We're looking at September 17th, unless there's anything else or any other last public comments. I'd look to close out the meeting. So anything else from anybody? Not seeing anything. Thanks everybody for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you and goodbye.